Welcome in everyone to the Main Take. I'm Evan here with Chris.
That's right, and we are here with our ice cold Miller Lights. I'm kidding. It's apple juice.
Just apple juice. Literally apple juice.
He is a father. We are drinking apple juice right now, so.
For those who don't know us personally, we do not drink alcohol.
That's true.
Just want a disclaimer. Today, we are talking about the NFL draft. We are on the third day. What a crazy scene it's been, Chris.
Yeah, so we are, following up the 2025 NFL Draft Spectacular edition of the Main Take, hopefully the first of many. Yeah, dude, it's pretty crazy. I think both of us had... Did you have Shedeur in your top 10 for a mock draft? Or did you have him falling out of the top 10?
No.
I did because I thought the Steelers needed a quarterback.
So I had him falling out of the top 10. Not only that, I will be honest, I didn't call this, but I did kind of throw out the feeler there in our last episode that it is a possibility he was going to fall out of the first round.
Right. So I know, this time last year, it was consensus. He was going top 5. He was going top 10. He was, they were talking about him potentially getting drafted last year too, but he didn't declare for the draft,
right.
So he was a consensus top pick, and I just can't fathom the absolute how bad did those interviews go? We know that's the issue. I didn't know, I heard that some of the interviews went a little wonky, I read about it. But everything that was coming out the day of the draft was, I read a quote, and I'm not going to verbatim quote the quote that I read. I'm going to paraphrase the quote from an anonymous, an anonymous GM that said, the interview went horribly. And I'm going to be honest, he's not even really that good. That was the paraphrased quote. How...
Yeah, and in that quote too, that was how he ended the quote. He had said during that entire quote, numerous things he didn't like just about his play. His scrambling techniques, his ego, and that's how he ended the quote. And honestly, he's not that good.
He's not even that good. I know I read a few reports going into the draft that Shedeur might not be QB2. And I remember telling my buddy that at work. I was like, yeah, man, I wouldn't be surprised if Jackson Dart goes before him. A lot of people had him as QB2. And then when Tyler Show got drafted by the Saints, I said, apparently there's at least one GM that had him as QB4. And then Jalen Milroe came off the board. And then Dylan Gabriel came off the board. Dylan Gabriel was picked by the same team that drafted him, which I think is a little weird.
Yeah, why are you going to draft 2 rookie quarterbacks?
Right. When you have three people.
They have 5 people in their quarterback room right now.
Right, absolutely. I can't, how you go from a person who, even up until 2 or 3 weeks ago, they were talking 2 or 3 weeks ago, this is kind of, 2 or 3 weeks ago to a month ago, people were talking, oh, this is the draft. It's going to go Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, just like that.
Nope.
144? Is that what it was?
144.
The 144th pick, a 5th round pick. A guy that a month ago was a top 3 pick, and last year was talking about getting drafted, period, as a junior.
Yeah, and the reason why he waited was because he wanted to go first overall. That was a big part of him waiting. He didn't want people to go before him. He wanted to be QB1. And now he's what, QB6?
Yeah,
5, 6.
He was the 6th quarterback taken off the board, yeah.
Yeah, so guys, this is crazy. We're going to get into the financial aspect of this, some other implications. This is quite the story, the fall from grace, I would say. Let's talk some contract discussions though. Because this isn't just a, we see what happened. If our football minds are like, oh wow, this is crazy. Kind of let's step into his shoes for a second. How much money did he just lose?
Total or on a year? So I think total. I know we were doing the research earlier.
His contracts, he lost a lot of money. So if you go in and look at it, right, typically when you're not the first overall pick and not in the first round, you're looking at around a $4.7 million contract over 4 years, right? The number 1 pick, the first overall, you're looking at like $46 million, right? With a 30 million sign-on bonus.
Yeah.
Right? You're talking $70 million, right? He lost out on $67 million, right? Just because of where he's picked. If now you compare that to what he's making in college, because now college players can make money, he's losing money, right? In college, this last year, he made $4.7 million in 1 year, right? So he's going to the NFL now, signing a $4.6 million contract. And I get like after, especially if he plays well, he'll make more money. He'll have, commercials and deals. So he's not, not going to make money, but he's taking a pay cut because he's going to the league now. Not only is he taking a pay cut, he's taking a pay cut and he has to compete for a job.
And not only does he have to compete for a job, he's got to compete for a job on the Cleveland Browns.
On the Browns.
Sorry, Browns fans.
Yeah,
Just
no
being
offense.
honest.
But I mean, let's really look at this. I mean, imagine you're at a level at your job in your career, right? And you get this promotion and you have to take a pay cut with this promotion. Not only do you have to take a pay cut with the promotion, but the actual job itself isn't even guaranteed. Like we're talking about a situation that just kept going from bad to worse. Yep. And I mean, credit to him. He's taken it really well. His reactions over the past couple of days have been good, which they need to be. At least publicly, right? He ended his first, draft party night and he didn't hear his name. He thanked everyone, said that this obviously wasn't what was planned, but, he's moving forward and, and he actually said, he thanks God and that everything happens for a reason. So he's taking it well, but I mean, this is definitely a turnaround from how his attitude has been, which I think has gotten him into this in the first place.
Right. And on the flip side, despite what it seems like, I don't know how we're coming off. I don't dislike Shedeur Sanders.
No.
I think he was an amazing player in college. I hope that his game translates, but like it's just I don't think I have ever, I've been alive for 23 years. I've been a football fan, I've been able to comprehend the game for maybe like 13 or 14 years. This is the first draft that like I started paying attention to where something like this happened. We're talking a guy who was the number 3 projected pick dropping 141 spots.
Yeah, it's crazy. Do you know what code switching is? Have you ever heard the phrase code switching?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, so imagine you walk into a room, right? An interview, let's say, and you have the way you are when you're with your friends, when you're with me, the way you're on your podcast. Yep. You go in for this interview, you're going to dress nicer.
Yes.
You're going to play the part, right?
You're going to talk more professionally.
So there's been not a new controversy necessarily, but a realization, and people have come out and said that, I think a big problem that he has had, and they're not necessarily saying a problem with him because they don't disagree with it, but they're saying he didn't code switch. So basically, right, he had these meetings with the GMs and he went in as himself and didn't change or cater anything toward them, which people have their opinions about. I personally think that obviously when you go into a setting, you need to read the room. You need to be able to understand who you're talking to and humble yourself to, that experience, not to lessen yourself and like, you not be confident in what you can do,
right? But
the way you present yourself matters. Perception's 9/10 of reality. So I think a big problem of what he has had with his interviews is he didn't so-called code switch. He didn't show them the best part of Shedeur and what they're going to get as an asset. He showed them everyday Shedeur. Right.
And I think that one thing that matters when you're a professional athlete is coachability. Nobody really, except for the people involved in the organizations, and Shedeur knows how he came off in those interviews. But, maybe it was a coachability situation. His dad's coached him his entire adult life. So I don't know. I'm mesmerized. I can't believe I remember when he dropped out of the first round. When Jackson Dart came off the board, I was like, okay, wow, he's gonna fall to the second round. No, not even the second round.
No, I mean the fact that he got picked in the fifth. By the time the fourth round came around, I didn't think that he was going to be picked. Honestly, I was sitting there. I was like, who's gonna? No one's picking him for a starting position.
Well, especially after Dylan Gabriel went to the Browns, and then, like I said, I got the notification today.
Yeah.
In between my classes, I got the notification. Shedeur Sanders to the Browns. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. And then I remembered they drafted Dylan Gabriel. I was like, no, that doesn't make sense actually at all.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting situation. I'm curious to see how training camp goes.
Yes.
And how they decide that quarterback room.
The preseason's going to go crazy in Cleveland.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at this point, you have to be thinking Watson's out, probably no matter what. I mean, they just drafted 2 rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't know what the implications is off that injury. Like, I don't know. Are they going to try to bring him back? Are they going to? I don't know.
I feel like they should eat that contract and just get rid of that situation.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's bad publicity. They just drafted 2 rookie quarterbacks. I mean, I bet you wanted them to cover in case something happens, and it kind of gives them options to trade. So, it's honestly not necessarily a horrible move on their part.
No.
But they need to be able to figure out what's going on with that quarterback room to make that work.
Right. And I will say, just based off of reactions, I don't think that it is a crime to dislike Shedeur Sanders. However, you see stuff online of people actively cheering as this kid plummets down the draft boards. It's just a despicable look for fans.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't agree with how he holds himself. I think that, the amount of pride he's had at the stage of his career is too high. Mm-hmm. Don't think he presents himself well. But I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh, thank God this kid lost like $60 million."
Yeah.
And this kid, his dream. I said kid, he's our age. This player's dreams are getting crushed. And I'm gonna find joy in that. Like, of course not. I think people need to realize, we're human. We should have some empathy for others.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll continue to follow this Shedeur situation with the Browns. The first thing I said when the Browns picked him is, oh, the Browns are browning again. But we'll see how this plays out. I'm quite interested. Stay tuned with us, and we'll continue to follow that story. I want to continue on about our teams more specifically, and then maybe some others. So why don't you start with what you feel about Dallas and how they kind of were able to navigate through this draft?
Right. So I did say before this episode that I wasn't gonna mention this, and I was gonna die on that hill until just right now. I've decided I'm gonna mention it anyway, despite what anybody who aren't Cowboys fans might say. We have drafted particularly well over the course of the last, 8 years. Going back to 2016, Ezekiel Elliott. Now, I know he had a awful end of his career, and he hasn't even retired. He's not done yet,
I didn't even know that, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, he hasn't, officially retired. 10,000 scrimmage yards, I think top 3 all-time of Cowboys scrimmage yards. Dak, now I know. I have my transgressions against Dak Prescott as a playoff performer, but I mean, you can't look at his statistics and say that a quarterback that we drafted in the 4th round, oh, that's a bad pick. Well, it's not. Michael Gallup, Leighton Vander Esch was a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Deron Bland, Trayvon Diggs was a 2nd round pick. We have historically drafted really well, so I can't sit there and go, I don't know what Jerry Jones is doing, because look, I may have a lot of problems with the way Jerry Jones runs the team, but over the course of the last 8 to 10 years, he has consistently shown that he can draft good players. Tyler Smith, who's one of our linemen, drafted last year or the year before. It had to be the year before because he didn't have a good year, and then he was really good last year. So we'll see. But yeah, Tyler Booker was our 1st round pick out of Bama, probably, I think, graded as the best guard in the draft, so that's cool. One thing I like to talk about, and I think I've talked about it with you, it's the term the sexy pick, right? Picking a lineman is not the sexy pick, but it's one of the ones you got to do.
Exactly.
Now, I know Teteroa McMillan was off the board when we got to pick. I wanted to see them draft a wide receiver. I wanted to see them draft a playmaker. But we did just lose Zach Martin, future Hall of Famer. He retired. We got to get somebody on the line. So I can't really complain. As long as if Tyler Booker is half of the player that Zach Martin is, that's a really high bar. If he's half of the player that Zach Martin is, a future Hall of Famer, this was a good pick.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think about Will Campbell?
Yeah, no, I think that's, and I was talking to you about this, obviously I'd love to see like a Travis Hunter if he was on the board still. I didn't expect him to be. Both of us knew he was going before the Pats. Part of me wanted to see an Ashton Genty just because, again, this is a generational player, playmaker that you can sign and lock down for a few years, and then you build your team and have a run. But I can't complain. I mean, Will Campbell was a good pick. He is set or supposed to be one of those generational linemen.
A respectful Southern boy.
Yeah.
I sat there, I watched that post-draft interview, crying, snot coming out of his nose. I will die to protect Drake May. Yeah, he was just snot coming out of his nose. He meant that.
It wasn't even like him saying, "I will do my best." No. Best isn't enough. He will lie. He will lie down his life.
It's like, dude,
for Drake May.
They are not coming around the corner with a weapon. But if they were, you want Will Campbell right there.
Dude, he won my heart. I ain't gonna lie. Like if I had to pick a bodyguard, I'm gonna hit up Will Campbell. So, I mean, hey, you know what? I love to see it. Right? He shows his passion. He wears his heart on his sleeve, obviously. So, I can appreciate that pick. I like that we addressed our left tackle situation.
It was a big one.
I like that we addressed our center situation. From Georgia. I like where they went with this draft. I think they pieced together some good pieces. I want to pull something up here. That got me kind of a little excited. We have, excuse me. So in the second round, right?
I like that pick too.
Yes,
it's a good pick.
Yeah, TreVeyon Henderson.
Yeah,
so
one of the Bucks,
running back from the Buckeyes,
the Ohio State University.
So I, just to pull up some stats, to kind of, show how excited, I am, and I think this is one of the reasons why I like running backs who are who have soft hands, who can catch the ball too, right? I think that it's important to be able to have some check down options, and over the last 4 years, 77 catches, that's I like that he has experience catching the ball, and it's not like something that they're gonna have to start working on with him. He this is something he's done for a while.
Right.
This last season, he ran for 1,000 yards with 10 touchdowns, right, and caught 27 passes for 284 yards. So, I like his usage, how they used him, and I think they're gonna probably use him that way more so, especially with Ramondre still, playing. He's 27, so he's at your technical, decline for a running back, as what most people would say, but they said that about Saquon. And
do you have TreVeyon stats pulled up?
I did, yes.
Okay. Well, I want you to tell me, if you don't mind, how many forced fumbles, like how many times he fumbled last year. I think it was 0.
He's fumbled 2 times out of the last 4 years.
Yeah, 2 times out. So he doesn't. What it was. He doesn't fumble a ball. He doesn't turn the ball over. Ball security is very important.
Right, and
I watched Ramondre Stevenson fumble the ball like 5 times last year, 6 times last year.
8. I think it was 8 times. So I'm excited about that pick, and then I'm excited about Kyle Williams, out of Washington State.
Is he the center?
No, he's the wide receiver.
Oh, okay.
And this guy pulled in 70 receptions this last year. They played 13 games, including their bowl game or playoff game, whatever you want to call it. 70. That's averaging 6 catches a game, right? 1,200 yards. He averaged almost 100 yards a game with 14 touchdowns. That's 1.2 touchdowns a game.
Right.
So, great offensive weapons. I think they did a good job this draft with focusing on areas of need. They just drafted another lineman as well in the 6th round, I believe.
Yeah, they also
from Missouri.
Yep. And they also picked Jared Wilson, Georgia center.
Yes,
So,
Jared Wilson. That's
in the 3rd round.
Yeah, so you're grabbing 3 linemen with this draft, along with a right tackle in your offseason dealings. So I'm excited. I think they've done a good job. Again, not the sexy pick to start, but the needed pick. And I think that fans might have been a little disappointed, but in the long run, they're going to be pretty excited.
You got to protect that kid under the center, dude. You have to protect Drake May.
If Drake May goes down, then your rebuild starts again.
You think of like David Carr. It was the early 2000s, but a guy that came in the league very talented. He got hammered. He got hit so hard his first 3 years. He was never confident again. Some people get jumpy.
Look at Luck.
Yeah,
Andrew Luck, man.
Had to retire.
He had to. He didn't even really have an option. It was just like, look at Tua. More I say modern. It wasn't. Andrew Luck wasn't that long ago, but for those who are younger and just started to pay attention to football, like Tua, if he gets another concussion, they might seriously be talking about retirement. And I know we said this last year, but like, it's a worry. Not even retirement for him. You're
worried about his long-term health.
Yeah, I'm worried about him. Existing after football.
Sure.
So anyway, I like how this draft went. I think both of our respective teams did well. Before we move on to another segment, I want to play a quick game with you.
Okay.
This is off the cuff, but I want to ask you top 3 winners of the draft by team. Who do you think really won this draft? And it could have been, based off of one pick, really, a steal, a sleeper, a trade made. And even if we wanted to do just one or top 2, but I want to stretch for 3, even we can do collectively. What do you think was the top 3 teams?
So I think if we're talking all around, I really, really like how the Cleveland Browns handled this draft. Right? They traded out of number 2. They got the number 5th pick. They picked Mason Graham, dog out of Michigan. He didn't, he only had 3.5 sacks last year, but sometimes, sack production, it's as simple as, one mechanical thing. And you don't even really need the sack production. You just need somebody to disrupt.
Right. Pressures are important.
Right. Good pick. I think Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State, the other Ohio State running back. I really like Quinshon Judkins. One thing, and this is why I have them up here, is they traded from 2 to 5, got a good defensive lineman, and they secured a 1st-round pick next year. If the Jags are middle of the road next year, which they very well might be, they very well could be, they're going to have a draft pick next year, depending on where they finish, and then we're talking picking anywhere between 15 and 18 in the 1st round next year with the Jags pick. So I think that's a good pick there. I think that they definitely, I like the way that they handled the draft. Outside of Cleveland, I hate admitting this. I think they picked. I don't get paid to scout players, to clarify, so I don't know. I think they picked the wrong guy at number 10. The Bears. They picked Colston Loveland instead of Tyler Warren. However, outside of that, not only did they draft particularly well for, their draft positions. One thing that I liked is they made a lot of moves. They picked a lot. I think they had like 10 or 11 draft picks this year.
It's quite a bit.
You're infusing a bunch of young guys that are on team-friendly contracts, for the next 4 years with a 5th-year option. Into this team that is already pretty young anyway.
Yeah.
You got a young quarterback there. So, yeah, I think that they did pretty well. And this is going to come off as bias. I'm not saying they're the number 1 winner, by the way. I think the Dallas Cowboys drafted well. Tyler Booker first, Donovan I had to write down how to pronounce his name. It's Donovan Ezeraku, Boston College edge, ACC Defensive Player of the Year last year, 15 and a half sacks. Revel Jr. out of East Carolina, I think is where he went to school. Siobhan Revel Jr., East Carolina. He was a special teamer and then turned into a lockdown cornerback. Projected to go in the first 2 rounds, fell to us at number 3. Jaden Blue ran a 4.38 40. He's a running back out of Texas. Shamar James, he's a linebacker, 220, 6'3", 220, elusive blitzer with 4.6 speed. And then we drafted an offensive lineman and a defensive tackle out of Oregon and UCLA respectively, and of course the draft's still going on. So I don't know what our last few picks were.
Right.
But I do think that they drafted well. Now, yeah, it's going to seem like a biased pick, but when you look at the team needs, the one thing the Cowboys didn't do is get a wide receiver. But we got some linemen, we got some defensive help, we got a running back, Jaden Blue in the 5th round. 4.38 speed. You can't teach speed.
No.
You might be able to teach a running back how to hit a hole. You can't teach him how fast to run. So I really like the way that we picked as well. And it seems biased. I promise you it's not.
Yeah, no, I don't necessarily disagree. I think I agree to your point with the Browns. They gained draft capital and got good players. I mean, they, that defensive piece they got at 5, is they definitely something that they could use, and they were able to secure a first round for next year on top of their other first round, which is arguably everyone for the most part agrees is a better class.
Absolutely. One other player that the Bears picked that I just popped in my head that I wanted to point out, Luther Burden, playmaker, wide receiver out of Mizzou. They have another playmaking, obviously we won't know until we see him play, but another playmaking wide receiver over in Chicago. I mean, that offense with
Keenan, is Keenan Allen still there?
Yeah, I think he should be, absolutely. Yeah. And then, they got one of the Detroit Lions coaches, Ben Johnson. That offense might be scary next year. And if it's not scary next year, it very well could be scary the year after. Once these players got some time to develop. But I think it could be scary this upcoming season.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I think the Bears might finally have a run at the Packers, which is good for them.
And also the Jaguars.
See,
the Jaguars going up and getting the guy, they needed help at receiver and cornerback. And they said, you know what, Travis Hunter's our guy. We're going to go up and get him. I respect the play.
I respect the play, but I worry. I worry for the Jags because this is an organization that has been perpetually bad. Okay. And it is true. It is just, we're just being honest. It's all young pieces now, right? Young coach, young GM, right? I respect the move. You say, all right, that's the guy we want. We're rolling with him. We're going to get him. That's great. I mean, I think that if they were to get him, that's, obviously if they didn't have to give up that much capital, then better for them. But it is a statement, right? Like, we're willing to rock with you. But I'm a little worried because, Trevor Lawrence is throwing the ball. He hasn't had a great, career so far. And I think that I
like Trevor Lawrence, just to clarify.
Yeah, well, and I don't mind Trevor Lawrence, but if we look at what the expectation was for him when he came in, and I know he had a really bad situation. He came into really bad coaching. So that definitely screwed him up. But at the end of the day, he is where he is. So
my thing with Trevor Lawrence is, he hasn't had consistent coaching. He had Urban Meyer, then he had Doug Peterson. But when you're a young guy coming into the league, a quarterback, and we talked about this with Brian Dable in our first episode. When we're talking about developing quarterbacks, specifically, the coaching matters more.
Right.
Because you're talking about, I don't want to say, I think all positions are equally important, but, you need a good quarterback. Like, that's something that if any team, any owner, any GM said, okay, if they had the choice, number one pick, you can pick any player in the league to lead your team. It can be any player to build your team around. They're picking a quarterback.
Right.
that matters. So Liam Cohen, their new head coach, came from the Buccaneers. I think that is going to do wonders for this offense. He was a Buccaneers offensive coordinator, the highest paid offensive coordinator in NFL history before he took this job.
Yeah, and their offense looked good. I think that they're in a better situation than they have been.
Absolutely.
I'm just, based off their track record, the consistency issues, I'm rooting for them for sure. But I do worry a little bit because you gave up a lot of capital. So, like you said, you want to build a team around a quarterback. If this doesn't work out, it would seem to be an attempt to build it around a wide receiver in some respects, because you gave up a lot of capital for him.
You did.
I mean, you're the next year's next year's draft is going to be better. So, I'm rooting for him. I do worry a little bit, but so where to next, Chris?
I know you probably want to touch up on the NBA playoffs. I couldn't be more angry. My team's down 2-1.
Yeah, and I know we talked about it earlier, but the Celtics did end up dropping a game, which I'm surprised because this would seem more normal in some respects where they drop a game at the away team's place, but they're the best away team in the game, so I figured they'd drop a home game, honestly. So I was quite shocked when I watched them lose to the Magic. The way they did too was just it was brutal. I mean, you watch them. They couldn't make a bucket. They started the second half. What was it? The Magic went on a 14-0 run.
Yes.
And it was atrocious. I mean, it was this one-on-one hero ball bull crap that we continue to say kills teams. And it does. When shots aren't falling, right, you can't isolate the ball to one player, because if the shots aren't falling, then they're not falling. You need to get the ball in everyone's hands, right? Get someone going. And you're not going to do that by playing iso ball. And, I get it, right? We can sit here and judge. And, obviously you and I wouldn't last 5 minutes on an NBA court.
For sure.
But what we're saying is true. You need to be able to get some momentum. And they did that, late into the third, early into the fourth. They went on actually it was in the middle of the fourth. They went on a 6-0 run within 20 seconds, a 3 and an and 1-2. They started cutting the lead back from 12 to 6 in the mid 80s. But, at the end of the day, you need to be able to find a way to get going. You have, Tatum, Brown, Derek White. Holiday was off, which definitely probably had an impact. But, KP, someone needs to make a shot.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I will say the Magic played out of their mind. They were defensively were aggressive.
Like 53 or 54 points between Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. I think it was like 28 and 25.
Wagner and Paolo, I think, over 27.
Yeah, both?
I think both, yeah. They and if you watch the game, they weren't taking a lot of outside shots, more specifically in the second half. They weren't taking outside shots. I mean, they were driving the lane, getting bucket after bucket. Transition baskets were insane. They would drive the lane in a fast break, and the Celtics wouldn't cover the middle, cover the hole. That's welcoming, fouls for anyone. I mean, you drive the hole, you have an open middle of the lane, you're forcing people to come over. Well, in the modern NBA, if there's any movement at all in the lane, they're going to call a foul. Playoffs are a little bit better usually, but I mean, they were pretty ticky-tacky, in my opinion, for the most part. So, someone's coming across the lane to stop you. Well, that's an automatic foul. They're hitting the layup, so it's an and one. Or they're just stopping and pulling up, 3-4 feet out from a defender and hitting shots. It's like, You guys need to be able to rotate and cover people. It doesn't work well when you don't.
Right. In other NBA playoffs news, Game 4 of the Thunder Grizzlies series we started in the middle of it, around the end of the third quarter. The Thunder complete the sweep. Shea had 38 points in Game 4.
Yeah, I mean...
And Scottie Pippen Jr. for the Grizzlies had 30 points.
He had 30 points?
He had 30. Bro, weren't you in the G League last year?
Hey, you know what? Good on him.
Good on him, absolutely.
People were clowning him and talking about how, he doesn't belong in the league, and I like to see that. Yeah, I never thought the Grizzlies had a chance.
Absolutely.
They can't.
And
They can't. It doesn't matter how many grenades Jaw throws at them. It won't stop them.
Heat lost Game 3 by 40 points to the Cavaliers.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, it's not. The Nuggets Clippers series seems like it's really good. Right now, it's a 2-1 series. The Nuggets are up in the second quarter. As of this moment, LA.
Yeah. We'll have to do after this first round. I know we didn't do it for the first round, but we need to do a bracket. Not a bracket necessarily, but just take our picks before and see what happens.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I'm not saying that this is what I would have said earlier, but for the most part, I definitely have OKC winning from the beginning. The Cavs, the Celtics, LA and the Nuggets are interesting. I probably have LA just because of the coaching situation with the Nuggets and how that kind of fell apart at the end of the year. The Lakers are another hard one because Timberwolves are just so unpredictable in my opinion. I feel like they can go out and wipe the floor with people, or they can go out and break everything.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards too.
Yeah, difference maker.
I mean, that guy plays like I never seen anybody play. Again, I'm 20 years old, and I want to clarify that 23 years old, and I'm only clarifying that because one of our friends listened to episode 1 with their dad, and I said that Justin Herbert is one of the most naturally gifted quarterbacks I've seen. I'm 23 years old, and his dad was freaking out. He was freaking out. He doesn't know ball. Like he was accusing me of not knowing ball because I'm young. Oh my
goodness.
So to clarify, I haven't seen anybody play like Anthony Edwards played since Kobe Bryant.
This boy doesn't know who LT is.
I said that's crazy. That's a crazy pull. All right. So for a little bit of context for why a LaDainian Tomlinson drop absolutely killed my boy over here. Evan, I love you, bro. Evan don't know ball like I do. He don't know early 2000s ball like I do. I'm a sports historian. I would say. So I saw a meme one time, and it was, "Hey Dad, why is my sister's name Rose?" He's like, "Well, your mom loves roses." And she's like, "Oh, thanks, Dad." And he goes, "Yeah, no problem. 2024 Saquon Barkley." And I work with an Eagles fan, and I tagged him in it. And I said, "This might be the greatest running back season I've ever seen." And some guy commented, he responded, he said, and I was at his house. I was at Evan's house when it happened. He responded, "Buddy's obviously never seen 2006 LaDainian Tomlinson." I'm 20. I was 4 years old in 2006. And that's what I commented. I said, "Dude, it was the best running back season I've ever seen." I was 4 years old. But I told Evan that. I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Buddy's never seen LaDainian Tomlinson in 2006. And Evan said, "LaDainian Tomlinson? That doesn't even sound like a real player." He said, "That sounds like somebody's creative player in Madden." He had 31 scrimmage touchdowns that year. 31. Unheard of. Evan goes, "I don't even know who that guy is."
I commented too. I said, "Bro's making made up players." Bro's naming real fake players.
Buddy's naming fictional characters right now.
So anyway, the point of that is to say, like obviously we're talking about people that we've seen and know. That would be like, that would be like someone coming up to us and being like, "Bro, obviously never saw Jackie Robinson's first career year in the MLB."
Yeah, bro. It was 1946.
Right. Like we weren't alive. So that's the point we're making.
No, but anyway, Anthony Edwards.
We digress.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards, one of the most exciting players. I've never seen anybody play like him since Kobe retired.
He has that mentality.
Right.
That he has that Mamba mentality.
So, Anthony Edwards, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I think if the offense can get going and stay going, Lakers will win. They have to shoot though. And if they can't, if their 3-point percentage doesn't hit what it needs to, then Timberwolves will probably take that series.
Absolutely.
No, I'm excited. NBA playoffs should be interesting. Celtics are playing tomorrow. I have a win for that one. I think that's probably pretty set in stone. I think gonna come back and be angry, honestly.
Sometimes you need to lose. You see that a lot. Sometimes these really good teams in the playoffs, they'll lose one and they'll kind of like come back to reality.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
they need to
tighten it up.
see, like, this is not, you're not a god. You're not invincible. You're human.
You
And
can lose games. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you guys don't get it together, you will lose games. People are out here to, to beat you down as best they can. So,
Absolutely. And I don't think I speak for only, people that follow the Lakers, only Lakers fans here. I think I speak for anybody that watches basketball. If the Lakers don't make it out of the first round, the entire season has been a failure. You might as well have traded, you traded for Luka Doncic here. You guys have to make it out of the first round.
yeah, I mean, that's it. I agree. I agree that the trade in itself seems to be a failure if you don't make it out of the first round.
But you have no defense.
Right. Well, see, so that's the thing. Like, I don't feel like the trade's necessarily a failure as long as you can address that in the offseason. I think that if they don't address that and get back to a position where they're, higher seeded, I mean, they going into next year, especially if they lose, early or just in general in the playoffs, I think it's a failure if they don't get, in the top 4 seeds next year because, you come in now, Luka's used to the program, used to the coaching, you address that defensive need. Now you have a team that should look scary. This year I can understand them losing, even though I know Luke, we agree Luke is one of the best offensive players in the league. There is growing pains though to expect there not to be and to be like, this is all been for naught. I think it's a little elementary for like I know that's not what you're saying, but I'm saying there are people out there who are like, oh my god, this is a horrible trade. Give it time. I said the same thing with the Mavs, and I actually at the beginning thought that the Mavs in this next 2 or 3 year window without the injuries won the trade
on
personally.
Paper.
Oh yeah. Their team looked well rounded. They just
now talent wise, like just to clarify, talent wise they got worse.
Oh yeah,
you're replacing Luka with AD. You got worse.
Yeah. The player, on an individual scale, is worse. As far as I don't like to say worse, isn't as offensively good in the certain areas you'd like in a modern NBA.
But on the flip side, the defense.
And it's the what you get when you plug it in to the rest of the team. That team was going to be, you have AD, Kyrie, Clay, you have wow, I'm blanking on his name. He was injured. Their center, Lively, Derek Lively, and then you had they actually traded Grimes, didn't they?
Yeah,
I think they did.
To the Quentin Grimes to the Sixers, I think.
The Sixers, but who'd they get from the Sixers? They got someone from the Sixers, 3-point shooter. Caleb Martin.
Yes. Yep.
Right. So, you put together a team that was, and Spencer Dinwiddie, right? So that team doesn't look bad. They have Gafford still, right? I mean, AD, Gafford, and Lively. That is a defensive powerhouse. So I think in the next year or two, we're going to see a run from the Mavs. It'll look good. I think if they can get far to the finals again, I think that's not the most successful because obviously you probably want to win, especially if you trade away Luka. But at the end of the day, quote from Nico Harrison, I don't agree with the trade that he necessarily made just because, you traded away one of, if not the best player in the NBA. But he can't control who gets injured. So, yes, you got AD, but you can't control that Lively was injured, that Gafford was injured.
AD was injured.
That AD injured, re-injured. Kyrie out for the year.
Yeah,
I mean, what is he supposed to do about that? Like we got to look at this objectively. All right, was it a good trade to make? 99.9% of the league will say obviously not. I am on the fence with the future and how it will hold. It's going to depend on injuries. I think if they get healthy, then it might not be that bad of a trade, and people really should kind of wait and see that. Let me preface that for the near future. I think for the long run, I think it was a horrible trade. But for the near future, I don't think it was that bad of a trade. But you got to give it time. You can't just look at that and be like, the world's ending like they have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Yeah, I don't think I have anything else for today. Do you?
So I wanted to just touch up on a little something make me feel good as a baseball fan. I
Let's
know
hear
we
it.
haven't had because we had the first episode and then we had the draft episode last time and then we had this one, which is also pretty draft focused and NBA playoff focused. I wanted to mention baseball. I wanted to mention the MLB as of the last time I checked, which was, 3 hours ago. Obviously, games are being played right now, but the leaders, the home run leaders in the MLB. Yeah, Corbin Carroll in Arizona with 9. There's 4 people tied with 9. Tyler Soderstrom on the Athletics. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to throw this name out, by the way. Mike Trout. Mike Trout has 9 home runs.
9?
9.
Does he actually have 9 home runs?
He's got 9 home runs. I actually pulled this up. I think it's awful. It's awful because Mike Trout is normally known for hitting the ball a little bit better than he is now. But if I'm not mistaken, and I will pull up MLB stats right now. Oh, by the way, and the fourth player is Cal Raleigh, Seattle Mariners catcher. Yeah. I probably should have mentioned him. Mike Trout's hitting 177 this year.
He's hitting 177 with 9 home runs.
He's hitting 177 with 9 home runs.
Dude has struck out every other time at bat. Oh my god! Hey! The stereotype of it's either a home run or it's a strikeout is quite literally the truth.
At the end of the day, we're talking about Mike Trout. He's we still got what 140 games left.
What's he on pace for?
What's he on pace for?
What's he on pace for?
Oh, he's probably on pace to bat home. Probably
for home
if
runs.
I were to guess, home runs. If I were to guess, he's on pace to bat like 150 for the batting average, and at 9 in the first 20 or so games. I'm obviously ballparking over the course of 160. So 80. I mean, you're on pace for 80, Mike.
Go
do it.
How many games have been played? We got to look at this before.
I think it all switches. I think teams are like 25 games in. Yeah, 25 to 26 is right around there.
All right,
so 20 or so games. So,
how many in total in the season?
162. I mean, look, you're on pace to break the record. Barry Bonds' record. You go out there, Mike, and you hit 150. But if you hit 75 home runs, we're talking about the greatest baseball player. You go hit 150.
Hey, Mike Trout is on pace for 91 home runs.
Look, if it keeps him on the field, go out and hit 150. Hey. I'm sick and tired of seeing you injured. But
that is crazy.
Absolutely. I think that's all for me. After
that's great. Yeah, this episode we did a good job. I think draft recap. What our feelings are about the NBA playoffs, and looking into some more baseball. Once the draft ends, we're definitely going to be able to allot more time to baseball and local sports. Just want to touch on this real quick before we head out. Baseball starting up. We're going to be following baseball in Maine, central Maine, southern Maine, the best we can. Anyone listening, watching this, you can reach out to us at themaintake@gmail.com with stats, questions. No caps. Yeah, all together. Just the main take as it's spelled on our page. And, we want to hear from teams about, opportunities to talk to coaches, set up interviews, whether it be in person, over the phone. But more importantly, we want to get stats for you guys. So, definitely, be vigilant with that. Make sure they get put up on, Max Preps, all the websites that can be. And we're looking forward to following, the sporting scene in Maine, and keeping up with you guys.
Absolutely.
So thank you. This is the Main Take, sports talk straight from the 207. I'm Evan with Chris. You guys have a good day.
I'll see you next time.